Welcome, everybody. So thank you for joining us for our 2021 Open Banking and Digital Financial Services Environment eSummit series here for the session 2 here in WA. I'm Trent Carter. I'm the State President for the FBAA, and I'll be emceeing for you today. I do hope everyone is keeping nice and safe, given all the things that have just transpired with the COVID around the nation. I know over here in WA, we've certainly done it a little bit easier than the rest. So I hope everyone's doing well. Please make sure and feel free to share your webcams if you're comfortable to do so. We'd love to see your faces, and it's a good way to stay connected while we are on the online forum. I know that the next lap is planning to be face-to-face again and actually in a room. So looking forward to that again. But while we are in the electronic environment, feel free to share your camera. So getting on with today, there's of course CPD points available to you, 1.5 CPD hours allocated to each Summit E-Series session. And you receive an email with your CPD code and the survey following today's session. You'll want to make sure that we thank our sponsors, of course. It's been a tough few years for everybody, but they've obviously continued to support FBAA really, really well. And of course, we can't do what we do without their support. So if you get a chance, please get in contact with them, show your support of them. You can get their contact details in the follow-up email after today's session. FBAA members, please remember that you get 10% off your membership every time you refer a new member to the FBAA. You can also download the FBAA app to get all the latest update information, upcoming webinars to register for. All the information about FBAA is available on the app. And then, of course, our new members area, well, refreshed members area, I should say. We've put a lot of work into the website, and we want you to log in and check it out again. There's a bunch of resources and tools to help you run your business and do what it is to be a broker out there. So please get in there, check it out. And also the FBAA Broker Support Program is still available for anyone to access via the website. We've added the BID Digital Education and Knowledge Testing course and information for those anyone still want to complete it and update their information around BID. We'll continue to update this section with anything new, any new measures that come out to continue to assist you as well. Today's agenda, if you're looking for that, was sent out with the registration, but you can also find it in the chat box. If you go down the bottom of your screen and click chat, you'll find the agenda as a PDF in there, so you'll be able to download and have a look with that. So without further ado, I'm going to kick off, and we're going to commence with hearing about embracing digital teams, building capacity and setting your business up to scale with affordable staff. So I'd like to welcome Caitlin Stewart, who will be taking us through this segment.
Thank you very much for that, Trent. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well this midweek. Fantastic Wednesday. Here we go, ready to kick things off. So my name is Caitlin Stewart, and I am the National BDM here for the financial services side of Affordable Staff. And who are Affordable Staff, you may ask? Well, we help brokers and business owners get their life back utilising virtual teams. So today I'm going to have a chat about capacity. Capacity is a big one at the moment. A lot of brokers I'm speaking to are maxed out. They simply cannot do it anymore. So some common themes in the conversations that I've been having recently, or at least over the last 6 months, is many brokers are working more than 10 hours every day, some even 16. I don't know how they do it, or 7 days a week as well too. So weekends are being spent on getting through applications and working on the business rather than being able to enjoy some personal time. I'm hearing a lot of stories about stressful admin and compliance being pushed back until the last minute because they're focusing so much on their new clients coming through, or if they don't even have the capacity to take on new clients as well. That's quite a common theme I'm seeing as well. Some clients are taking their business away, obviously resulting in clawbacks and the additional stress that comes with that for brokers. And, you know, that's also very stressful too if you just are not able to bring on any more clients, because obviously we all know that you will stagnate in growth. Your book won't grow without being able to take on new clients. A lot of people are concerned with the current market that although they need the assistance, they're not sure if they can actually afford to hire permanent staff as well too. So that's holding them back from actually taking the leap to the next stage. So when it comes to capacity, it's important to understand what is your capacity. You need to be able to grow sustainably, but there's only so much that you can do in any one day. Some really easy ways to do this. Sit down, have a look at your tasks that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. What are the tasks that you can delegate down? So $1 tasks, as we like to call them. The tasks that you are looking to keep your focus on, are they making you any money? Or are they just taking that time away from your return on investment activities? So important to keep those ones for yourself, delegate the rest away. Something that's a really fantastic tool that you can have a look at is a quick shout out to the 10X group. So they do have a sustainable capacity calculator available on their website, free and able for you to use at any time. You can plug in how much time you're spending on tasks, how many clients you're seeing, how many you would like to see, and that will let you know whether or not you are working sustainably or not. If you are not, well, maybe it's time to make a plan. You may like to consider embracing a digital team. So Affordable Staff, we are all about digital teams. We provide you with a virtual assistant that can handle your low value, time consuming tasks so that you can focus on working on the business rather than just in it. We do anticipate that you could save anywhere from 10 to 20 hours per deal by delegating your admin to a dedicated resource located in the Philippines. So that can then allow you and your local team members, if you have them, to focus on those ROI activities. We'd love to be able to see you bringing back some capacity in both your business and your personal life as well too. So that is the ultimate end game. We supply a full-time dedicated support person or staff member, another team member, but they just sit in a different office. That's how we like to think about it. Some tasks here that you may like to look at outsourcing. A lot of very basic processing tasks here, but things that can take a lot of time, you know, apply online, data entry, chasing client files, valuations, pricing, notes, all of those sorts of things. You can start to ask your VA to assist you in other areas of the business as well too, like nurture programs or compliance audits, all of those really fun, time-consuming tasks. A couple of case studies just to round out, just to show you where we've had some really great wins for some of our clients. So the first one here is Kim. Kim was averaging $1.5 million in settlements, operating as a solo broker. So she was actually turning away leads because she just was at capacity. She wasn't able to take on anything else. She hired a VA through us in November of 2020 and spent a good month really pushing through a lot of training, getting that VA up to speed. Within 2 months, however, their volumes had already increased to an average of $4 million. And Kim had more time to focus on getting new clients and also referral partners. So since then, had a catch up with her a couple of weeks ago. She's now averaging $6 million in settlements and is also now looking to bring on another team member on board as well too to continue that sustainable growth. Second case study, Peter. So Peter was averaging $3 million in settlements. It was himself as the in-house broker, had a full-time in-house admin, and also had hired a new-to-industry broker as well too. So recognised that he needed some assistance for both himself and also his new broker. So he hired a virtual assistant through us in January of this year. 6 months later, volumes have obviously increased across the board, but they've been able to manage those volumes. So they have doubled more than, so settlements now averaging $8 million per month. And a really good win from this case study is that Peter has actually been able to drop down to 4 days a week, only working 4 days a week, 8 hours a day, while still enjoying these increased settlement volumes and knowing that the team's taking control of everything. So that's it today, just a little bit of a taste. If you would like to find out more about us, how we work with our clients, especially in the broker space, please reach out, contact me for a free consult. We can do this over Zoom or via Teams. I am based in Melbourne, so a little bit ahead of you, but absolutely happy to cater to your schedule if necessary. My calendar link, my phone number's there if you'd like to take a quick screenshot. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. And yeah, all the contact details for our presenters will be sent to you as well, but feel free to grab them off the slides as you need to as well. Very next session, I'd like to introduce our panelists. So we're going to have a panel session now with Bluestone, Belinda, we've got Strive Financial with Cam, Lend, we have Danelle, and Prosper, we have Lee, joining Mark Windram, who's going to be the MC for the panel session. So please welcome everyone.
Hello, Champion.
Hey guys.
Hey everyone.
Good morning. Okay, well, look, we'll get going straight away, guys. And thanks to Trent for introducing everybody. Now, we're going to go through the same questions that we did yesterday if anyone was in attendance for our session 1, but I'm expecting some pretty different answers. So please stay tuned for what we've got coming up. Now, we'll start with Belle, because you're at the top of my screen. And what is about your product that sets you apart from other lenders?
Cool. Well, good morning, everybody. So what's different about Bluestone? I guess there's a number of little key parts to our business that we're seeing out there, and a lot of brokers making the most of it. Something especially around the no LMI at 85%. So your full doc, no LMI, good saving 2.99 for your Perth Metro. I do know there's a number of brokers loving that one. How we deal with specialist customers, also another part. So looking at their actual, story behind it and a case-by-case type of solution lending. And the other key part I've got to say is our self-employed is definitely standing out on our servicing with the no DTI and no credit scoring.
Well, thanks very much, Belle. Cam, over to you, mate.
Hello, champion. Thanks everyone for having me. Listen, I guess a couple of little things that set us apart, mate. We're a small family-run company. In the short-term space, it can sometimes get a little bit grey around who's the lender and who's not a lender. It's all our own in-house funds here. I guess the main thing that sets us apart is that we don't have the upfront fees and charges, and we can genuinely turn the money around within 24 hours. Even with COVID hitting, which has obviously stopped me flying around the country, we now have offices set up in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth, where the client meets with our lawyer. We set up a Zoom meeting like this. They don't receive any advice from our lawyer. I still am able to explain all the documents to the client, but we're still able to turn that money around within that really short period of time without me even having to get on an aeroplane and fly to Melbourne or Perth or wherever it might be. So they're probably the main couple of things that really set us apart, mate.
Thanks very much, Cam. And Lee, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Look, from our point of view, what sets us apart, it's not always just about the product, I guess. From our point of view, like, a lot of the lenders in our space are very similar in what the product can offer. But I think it's down to the people and actual business. We've got over 200 employees, all with a mindset of all about thinking about, helping small businesses around Australia, and not only small businesses, but brokers around Australia. We've got a dedicated marketing team who, are all about education, in this space. It's not just about features and benefits of products. If you go to our website, there's blogs, there's EDMs, there's ways that, we can help, brokers out there identify, opportunities. And probably one of the other things mostly is that we've got a dedicated client success team, which is all about repeat business. So close to 8 out of 10 clients come back to us for more funding within their loan contract. So, it's probably about the people, and it's all about just ensuring that, your clients that you refer to us, have got a treated like family, I guess. So, yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Lee. Now, we'll pass over to Danelle. Now, obviously, you're not a lender per se, but give us a bit of a pitch about what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and good morning, WA. Look, at Lend, we are a tech platform that helps you find the right product for your clients. So whether that's Late Prosper, whether it's Cam at Strive, if you've got a client that's looking for commercial finance and you're not sure where it needs to go, one application form, one set of bank statements can give you access to up to 60 lenders. Now, anyone who wants to shop their customer to 60 lenders, I think we've got a bigger problem than what platform you're going to use. But you do actually have the option to access all of those lenders, Mark. So real-time status updates, lots of choice, huge product range, and we're launching our asset platform overnight tonight. So
cool.
That's the next thing for us.
Hot off the press there, mate. Excellent news. And I've been speaking to a few brokers while I've been in our lockdown over here, and I've spoken to probably 3 or 4 that have just started to dabble in the old commercial side of things, and there hasn't been a bad word. It hasn't been, it was a complete disaster, and it's platforms like that and the BDMs that we've got on the call at the moment that really do help these things happen, and just keeping those communication lines open. So thanks very much for that, guys. Now, next one we've got is, if I was a startup company that has been trading for 6 months but has a high income of over $100,000 already, what would be the maximum amount I could borrow and what documents would you require? Now we'll go to Lee.
Thanks, Mark. Good question, mate. Look, from our point of view, I'd probably want to workshop the deal with the broker. Look, first I'd ask if that was 100K a month, or is it like, are you totally like, is it over the 6 months? So look, as per our matrix and probably guidelines for a startup business that's been operating like between 6 and 12 months, we have a max lend of 25K. We have the ability to do some out of policy loans, but 25 max is max most of the time. And look, going back to why I asked if it's 100K was on a monthly, amount or an accrued total over the 6 months, is because as a general rule of thumb, we probably lend about 80% of the monthly turnover. So let's just say it was, if it was 100K over the 6 months, and that averages to about 16K per month. So we'd estimate for that client, we'd probably lend between 10 and 15K as a safe bet over about 12 months. So
that's within your 25 grand as well, isn't it? So that works.
That's right.
Cool, thanks very much, mate. Cam?
Mate, our stuff simply comes down to the security that the client can offer. So the time in business and the trading lengths and stuff don't apply to our product. We can lend to a client that's had a PTY Ltd company that's been set up for 24 hours. Because at the end of the day, we're looking at the security that the client can offer and the exit strategy that the client has. So if they're refinancing or the property's on the market they're selling, or they're waiting on invoices to be paid 30 days end of month, we're looking at that exit strategy and what security they're looking at offering, which is why we don't need to look at the bank statements or what the cash flow is like through the business, like some of the other unsecured lenders do. So yeah, listen, we can definitely look at it. Again, just comes back to what property they're able to look at offering as security.
Cool, thanks, mate. And Belle?
Yeah, cool. So I'll have to put this into a Bluestone application type of scenario. So obviously we need the standard residential security, and then we'd be assessing that customer based on their income and expenses. If I was looking at a customer that was self-employed, I'd need them trading or ABN set up for a minimum of 12 months. But if we're looking at, for example, the last 6 months of their income through business statements or BAS, we definitely have a product there. But I wouldn't give you a dollar figure, but there's definitely a way to make a solution there out of a deal. And if you're looking at, say, business statements, we're definitely looking at that consistency of regular monthly income to support that customer's business and going forward.
Cool, thanks, mate. And as per previous point, just have a chat to the BDMs around the place to ascertain those things. And I guess, Danelle, if you kind of punched all this information into your platform, would it come out with a tick or a cross, or what would happen?
Thanks for answering the question. Go straight to the next one. Good work, Wyndham. No, absolutely. You're 100% right. That is what will happen in the system. So, and again, that's what really helps support new to commercial brokers as well. Doesn't mean you're new to the industry. You might just be new to commercial. Excuse me. So it will look at, the questions are very clearly structured. We ask questions around who are the clients' clients, so we can get an understanding if it's B2B, because there may be a multiple solution here. So if they're a B2B business, they might be able to get, 40, 50K, depending on the size of their debtors ledger under invoice finance. They might be able to grab some, money through Lee at Prosper, and they may have some assets that they own to be able to do, a capital raise against. So the system will hold your hand and point you in the right direction. And to touch on your point, even though we're a tech platform and the guys that are on this call know it, we really encourage the BDM relationship. We want you to call your BDMs. We want you to have those conversations. The system isn't here to take time away from talking about complex scenarios. But when it is a simple, pretty much under 100K, unless it's a new structure like we're talking about, really should take 2 minutes and the system will do the work. But if it's complex, we really want our brokers to pick up the phone and talk to the BDMs as well.
The system's not going to tell you how much it loves you either, as well as it. So, it just doesn't have that personal touch. Unless you could put some, I don't know, red love hearts on there if it gets approved. I don't know. Maybe that's
I'm working on my head and Georgia's popping up for the help icons. So yeah.
It's not Tinder, bruh.
You could be the new face of the little paperclip that used to be around as well. That could be a little system improvement there.
That's it.
Okay, so we've got another one. We've got a restaurant. Okay, so Mr. Smith has been and managed a restaurant for 15 years. He decided to go out on his own and buy his own restaurant. Needs finance for fixtures and fittings. Is this something you can look at? And is there any other finance you can offer him, Cam?
Yeah, mate. Listen, again, ours is all based back around the security that the client's able to offer. So we don't look at security in fixtures and fittings of restaurants and what have you. Again, it would need to be a second mortgage on a residential property, or we can look at cars and stuff like that the client has. But typically 90% of our stuff in a scenario like that is going to be a second mortgage on the owner operator's property, which can then be funded into the business. It might be a question for Belle as well. You guys would probably be happy to take us out of something like that. Would that be right if we did a second against the client's property to get them into it within sort of a couple of days? Is that something that Bluestone would take out at the back end?
Unfortunately, no.
So you won't refinance? Yeah, but will you refinance the first and second?
Yes, correct. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be able to pay out that one under our near prime product.
Yeah, perfect. So it can be a solution based is what I'm trying to get at here. We can do it we can have it turned around in 24 hours, and then you can take it to Bluestone, who have it paid out in 4 weeks or 5 weeks or however long your turnaround times are. And literally the client can have the money in 24 hours and have it back into a different product within 4 or 5 weeks in a refi. Because if we're going to lend to your client, they're going to have equity to move in their property, which someone like a Bluestone will be happy to refi and take out the first and second.
So I guess on that point as well, there's no kind of exit fees or anything like that you guys are going to be charging, because you really are that solution based, very short term, get them in, get them out, and get them into a better product type of thing.
Most definitely, no minimum term at all. So if, let's say Bell can have it turned around in 2 weeks, they literally pay the 2 weeks interest and that's it. The loan's paid out. There's no minimum term. There's no exit fees. There's none of that stuff. So we're just trying to offer that solution while they get from point A to point B.
I guess it's in no one's interest to keep them on there forever and a day or anything like that. It's making sure that the communication again is up with everybody involved, keep the clients' expectations all realistic and everything like that. But over to you, Lee. Anything on your side?
Look, unfortunately, wouldn't be able to help Bill out immediately. From our point of view, we'd need to wait at least 6 months unless he actually bought an existing business, and if in that instance would have to wait a minimum of 3 months. And look, once he's been operating that business for at least 3 months, if it's an existing one he's taken over, or even after 6 months, again, it would probably look to only lend up to about 25K max. But regarding financing for fixtures and fittings, that is exactly what we can do, as long as the use of funds is business use. Then we wouldn't have an issue with lending to them. Obviously, it need to fit the other parts of the the guidelines and stuff like that. But we would look, it'd have to wait at least 3 months for us to look to help out.
Thank you. Bill, do you want to add anything on to what you were saying earlier, mate?
Yeah, so I guess when we're looking at these type of deals and how does Bluestone work, we'd be looking at us being that long-term goal. So you might be using, for example, like Cameron said, an opportunity to go there first, or a Prosper or something like that if you need a quick fix. But we would normally look at doing cash out for business purpose, a part of the own occupied or investment security. I guess the key benefits there for me is just pointing out is you're using own occupied rates for business purpose or commercial purpose. And that could be a huge saving for your customers' cash flow. I'd probably be pointing in more the direction of that loan purpose and what we can do to maximise a customer's borrowing capacity using their own occupied or something a little bit along the lines of that.
Thanks, mate. Now, I'll go on to the next question. We've got old Mr Flintstone here again. He keeps on popping up in his nice modern car. Now, he needs some finance for stock and he needs to have it next week. But some of his accounts that are due to pay him are running late. Would you look to still finance him, and if so, on what terms? Sounds like something you probably do, Cam.
Yeah, again, most definitely, just based around his security. Again, we don't do credit checks. So we don't do credit scoring. If he's got some missed payments or he's waiting on people paying him and he hasn't been able to pay, none of that gets held against him. We wouldn't even know because we don't do those credit checks. Again, it'd just be purely around what security he's got and what's his exit strategy. People are going to pay him in 30 days time and he can pay out, then that's fine. No dramas in the world.
Thanks, mate. Lee?
Yes, we would. Again, probably comes down to workshopping the deal to give a guide on the term and amount. Again, looking at, how long's Fred been in business?
Very long time, I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, if it was back then, he might be just a little bit too old, but if he's alive still, then fantastic. What's his average monthly turnover? Like what industry are they in? Obviously there's a couple of industries that we don't look at, but again, it's all about workshopping the deal. We're looking at now we're asking if there's any ATO debt, and we'd look at the overall profile of the client. If the asset backed, any dishonors. So again, just a couple of questions that we'd ask if that was to come across.
Thank you. And Bill?
Oh, not one for me, sorry. So residential only really around that business purpose. I need some more time.
No problems. And Danelle, just to switch the question up a little bit for you, when you are punching all the information into your system, what are your kind of, I guess, turnaround times on, getting an answer from the however many people that come up? What are you seeing at the moment? And what have you seen, I guess, in the last 6 months? Have they been improving or what have you?
Yeah, look, as all the lenders sitting on here today know, lender appetite is huge. Everyone wants deals, everyone wants leads. And so, it's quite robust and there's lots happening in our space at the moment. I think one of the things is that it's just really important to understand that, whilst 6 times out of 10, an unsecured deal through Prosper will help solve your client's issue, there's lots of other options out there. And as brokers, we really need to make sure that, your financial literacy is up to date, because as soon as you gave that scenario before, Mark, which means I'm actually answering the scenario before, not the one you just asked me, but is that they've got, outstanding, they're waiting to be paid by several clients and they've got outstanding invoices. Now, does that mean that debtor finance is a cheaper, more affordable and a better structure for the client? Is it important, depending on the size of the business, to have it sitting on or off balance sheet? So these are all the things, is to not just think about necessarily the one product fits all. It's not one flavoured ice cream, and thank God, because that would be, not the right option for Australian business owners either. So yes, look, our system asks questions around, is the client asset backed? Who are their clients? What's their ATO debt? Is it under arrangement? What's the monthly revenue? What's their monthly expenses? That's without bank statements. We get bank statements, so I could talk to you about what else we do for hours, so I don't want to bore everyone. But those basic principles and those basic questions are really going to help guide people in the right direction for the product. So we need to make sure that we keep our minds open, especially in the current environment. And again, it could be a great solution where, the equity that's in the property means that Cam can do, 100 grand for a customer. And then based on the cash flow of the business, that Lee might be able to come in and do 25K for the customer. So again, if I can really stress that it's not one flavoured ice cream, and certainly one size does not fit all in the current environment in alternate commercial, that's for sure.
Thanks, Danelle. Now, we're just a week into the new financial year now, so happy New Year again to everybody. Obviously, everyone's going to have some very structured self-employed clients that are already getting their tax returns done so close into July. Will anybody lend for ATO debt? Cameron?
Yeah, mate, we have no problems paying ATO debt. It's actually one of the things that we do a fair bit of to bring the ATO portal up to date, which will then allow them into a different lender. So as long as it's company ATO debt, it's not personal ATO debt. But yeah, it can be as much or as little as they've got. It doesn't matter. Again, secured around usually their principal place of residence. But it helps them get from A to B to get rid of that and be able to move on and get back into a lender that once the ATO debt's been cleared up, we'll have them back.
And Lee, I can see you're nodding your head. Yeah,
very similar to account. We definitely could lend for ATO debt. There is a bit of criteria regarding like outstanding tax debt those. So just from a point of view of a tax payment plan is required if the tax debt is divided by the average monthly revenue is greater than 60%. So let's just say they're doing $100,000 a month, and you know, they had a tax debt of 75 grand. We wouldn't lend to that client unless they had a tax payment plan. If they have got, if they're on a payment plan, their tax cannot be greater than 150% of the average monthly revenue. So there's a couple of rules, and you know, behind it, but we will lend for ATO debt, and I think, like Pam said before, you know, that can help them secure some funding somewhere else. You know, so yeah, happy to help out, but we just ask a couple of questions around it.
Awesome. So I'll ask those up front. I would be imagining there for sure. Now, Belle, what can you help us on this one?
Oh, I like this one. So ATO debt can definitely pay out with obviously the equity available in either their own occupied or investment residential. So we can look at a full doc option at 3.24, but also we have the alt doc option at 3.69 starting. So obviously subject to that location, if it goes to 85%, then we can look it up to that. And that'll have to pay out the full debt. And I think, you know, if we think about a customer that has a monthly commitment with the taxman, it's definitely a way to create a better cash flow and obviously put more money into their pocket, into wrapping that into that one repayment. So I think it's definitely a good option, helps a number of customers out there too.
Cool. Thanks, mate. And I'm just going to ask a little supplementary question for yourself there, Belle, as well. If someone's got, you know, a small, you know, say less than $1,000 on their credit file, this could be for anybody now. Would you still consider lending to them? And if so, you know, what type of products that they're going to be looking at?
Yep, so we definitely look at credit impaired as well, as we're looking at the consumer credit file, not the commercial. Keep that in mind, and we look at an individual default. So depending on A, how much is that default, and B, when was the original listed date, can depend on the product. So if we look at our prime product, starts at 244, they can have a number of defaults, unlimited, up to $500 paid per each default. Going under the near prime, we'll ignore any amount up to, well, under 1,000, so we ignore to any unit number, and then original listed date just needs to be more than 2 years ago. So it's either of those options. So I think the near prime is probably where we fit most of our credit impaired customers, and I think that's probably a really good product if you're looking at a customer that may have like a $50,000 default more than 2 years ago. We can definitely support it for that one, and that'll also cover off that tax debt.
Yeah, excellent. And can they, you know, convert to a more refined product down the track as well if they qualify?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a number of WA brokers reach out that have had customers with us for a couple of years ago. If you do have any customers who have dealt with us previously and you want to review their current rate comparison to our rate card today, just that's a nice quick retention call. And we're happy to have a look at those examples. If it, you know, a customer was a specialist or specialist plus due to some defaults of credit impairment, they're now a prime customer. We're more than also happy to have a look at those customers and put them in a better position, and obviously subject to documentation today.
Thank you. And Danelle, in your experience with all of the different panel lenders there, are they all going to be pretty good for ATO debt, do you think?
Yeah, look, Lee probably summed that up nicely for most lenders. The majority of guys will do it, Mark. It really does just depend. There definitely is some, you know, caveats around that as far as, you know, size of the ATO debt, how old is it, how long has it been under arrangement. But one of the things that's really important here is that we all want clients to end up in mainstream funding. And ATO debt is a big issue of being unable to move into that sort of ATO clearance and get that nice rate that, you know, we don't really talk about in alternate commercial finance very much. We don't get into single digits too often for long-term products. So ATO debt is probably one of the most untapped reasons, and something that, you know, brokers should really consider for their clients, so that then they can show a clear record and move into one of those nice prime type rated products, whether it be through their home loan or through a business loan through, you know, a bank. That's the end result that we all want for our clients.
Excellent. And do you find, this might be a question without notice, but do you find when people do exit after the ATO debt's been paid off for, you know, say a year or something like that, there's no problems then going to the more prime space? They're not really worried about it because it's been paid out for a year or whatever?
Look, one thing I will say, Mark, and I've worked on from a lender side, so 100% I've seen that where, you know, they've paid out their ATO debt, they're 6 or 7 months into their 12-month term loan, and, you know, the loan's been paid out by a NAB or a Westpac or a Blue, 100% have definitely seen that. But what we do find also is that a lot of those repeat customers for ongoing workflow, working capital, will come back to this space regardless of rate because of the service and speed that they can get their hands on the money. So you do sort of get a little bit of a double edge there. So they'll definitely be able to go and refinance the bigger, larger chunks of funds at the right rates. But for those quick cash flow, as we said, to take an advantage of an opportunity or to provide a very quick solution, we'll find that a lot of those customers will still come back to this space.
Thank you very much. Now, we are just running over time a little bit, so I'm just going to smash through this last question, okay? It is more of a scenario one. So we've got, is there anyone on the panel that can lend for the following? If so, can you let us know the maximum LVR and loan amounts? We've got a hobby farm and a non-income producing farm. Hands up. Cool.
Not from us.
No worries.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to elaborate a little bit on that?
You have this one, Belle.
Yeah, this one's mine. Subject to location, obviously, and WA Brokers, we are updating it. I do promise it is in the pipeline, so it shouldn't be too far off with our secure locations. Depending on the LVR is depending on what we would do. Policy is to 5 acres, but we can write an exception to 40. But it is really important. It isn't income producing to support our deal. So I think that's the key part. So check your security and then A, look at the LVR, the loan size, and B, we can do an upfront valuation if need to as well.
Anything else?
No, mate, ours as long as it's not income producing farm. So, yeah, listen, the LVRs just change, right? Depending on where it is and what size it is and what have you. Simplest thing on most of these, mate, is a 30-second phone call to give me an address. I can pump it into RP data and I can literally give you an answer while we're on the phone.
That's easy. Excellent. Thanks, mate. And the last one, Airbnbs.
Yes.
Cool, Lee?
Yeah, we do. However, it's difficult to know like the loan amount for these, but it depends on the mortgage repayments that the customer's got on the properties. But we do.
All right. And Danelle, so you put your hand up, so there's probably a few on the panel that might have a look at it.
Correct. Yep. Plenty there.
All right. And anyone else?
Yeah, we can look at it, obviously subject to how long it's been going for and what evidence we have for it. So just remembering that your earned income needs to be $1 more than any rental income, though, for an application.
Cool. Easy. Well, look, thanks very much, guys. That was a great session. Look, again, thank you so much to Belle from Bluestone, Cam from Strive, Lee from Prosper, and Danelle from Lend. And as Trent has mentioned, all the details will go out after the session if you want to get in contact with our lovely people up on the screen at the moment. But that's it for me for now. I will just say, just on a Euro point of view, go England tonight. It will be coming home, hopefully, in the next few days. Over to you, Trent.
Thank you, Mark. I believe England have a bit of a habit of getting to this stage and letting an entire nation down. So,
nonsense.
Fingers crossed.
Hey,
There's something different happening this year. There's something different.
The Euros have never been home, so I don't know. They've never been to England, so good luck. Good luck, guys.
It's just coming home. That's all you need to know.
Okay.
Look, great session. And what I picked up from that is that there's a solution for almost anything when you're working with their self-employed clients and business owners. Don't be the type of broker that just packages up the 2 years of financials and pushes it into a big four BDM or banker's face and say, give me a solution. Think about it a little bit strategically. Sometimes the solution's a short-term solution to gateway to a bit more of a long-term sustainable funding for them. So all the guys there are more than happy to have your conversations about those deals. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Rebekah Smith from Smith & Wellness, who'll be talking about practical strategies for stress reduction. Beck is a TEDx speaker, expert in mental fitness who consults to organisations on ways to reduce stress, prevent burnout, improve communication, optimise team culture. She's a former physiotherapist with a background in psychology who also teaches dance and yoga class when she isn't working as a positive psychology coach. That's a lot on her plate. As someone who has recovered from burnout and mental illness, Beck uses her personal experiences as well as her professional knowledge to help others optimize their lives. A great session and looking forward to it. Over to Beck.
Thank you for that lovely introduction and welcome everybody. I'm Beck. I'm currently sitting in cold, chilly Adelaide, and I would like to acknowledge that I'm on Kaurna country where I am. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land because their connection to the waters and the lands of the Adelaide Plains region is just as important to living Aboriginal people today as it has been for thousands of years before. So I want to acknowledge the elders, past, present and emerging, and the spiritual, emotional and physical connection that they have to Adelaide Plains region. Wherever you are joining me from today, I hope that you are well and thanks for connecting in. Today's session is going to be around some mental fitness strategies that you can take to manage stress. Originally, I had talked about this session being a stress reduction session. However, reducing stress is not always possible, as I'm sure many of you can attest to. So what can we do to better manage it so that it doesn't impact us as much? That's going to be the focus of this session. I'm going to give you a brain hack for managing stress better and also a body hack for managing stress better. And these two different strategies are things that you can do in combination and share with other people as well. So thank you for being here and let's get into it. Most of the work that I do is around investigating the cogs that are going on in our brain. A lot of people don't necessarily know what's underneath the surface, so these cogs can sometimes look a little bit like this. We're not necessarily aware of all of our thinking processes and what's going on in our brain. There is a lot of subconscious activity happening a lot of the time, and this is often what leads to stress. We may not even be aware of what is stressing us out, which is why sometimes some clever hacks for body and brain can be useful for getting under the hood, so to speak, and being able to manage that stress a lot better. The three different areas that I speak to when I'm talking about building our mental fitness, it's a little bit like going to the brain gym, working on our strength, working on our flexibility, and working on our endurance with different types of exercises. So I'm going to give you some more context around strength, flexibility, and endurance toward the end of the session. But I want to start by actually talking about some of the things that get in the way of our cogs turning properly. So here on the screen that you're seeing at the moment, and you're welcome to take a photo of this if this helps you, these are some factors that get in the way of our mental fitness. So you can see that on the left of the diagram, there are some things that make us mentally more fragile. On the right, things that make us mentally rigid. And down toward the bottom, things that zap our mental energy and make us more lethargic. So the few things that I'm going to be talking about today, we're going to cover as we go, but emotional reactivity is one that can come up a lot for me personally, particularly when I'm stressed. So that's where we're going to start. Now, in terms of emotional reactivity, and when we start to have a reaction to something that happens in our lives and it stresses us out, one of the common problems is that when a stimulus or a situation happens and leads to some kind of emotional response, we think that that's the end of the story. So I'm going to unpack what we call the STR model for you today. And STR stands for stimulus, thought, response. Because most of us think that, well, of course I got angry because this happened, we tend to make that quick jump from the stimulus to the response. But many of us forget that there's this thinking part in the middle. So what you're going to see on your screen at the moment is that in between the stimulus and the response, there's this gap. And this is where our thoughts occur. Now, those thoughts may be an accurate representation of what has happened, but they may not be accurate either. And the stimulus that has caused a thought could have happened from outside of us. So it could have been an event has occurred. Somebody has knocked over the glass of milk. Or that stimulus could have been more of an internal event. It could have been a sensation that we've had in our body that stresses us out, a pain of some sort, or even a thought that then leads to another thought. Now, once we get into that thought space of looking, well, are these thoughts accurate or not? It leads to this response, which could be an emotional response or it could be a behavioural response. So if something has happened in your workday, in your family life, in your friendships, that has triggered some kind of emotion in you, that might be something that you hold inside and you don't express. Or it might be an emotional response that then also comes out in your behaviour. You might get snappy, you might cry, you might yell. And so you can have an emotional response and a behavioural response. They're not always observable. They're not always seen by other people as well. So this is very much about looking inside of you and starting to analyse, okay, when I'm stressed out, when a situation happens that has stressed me out, what are the thoughts that have led me to this? So I'm going to give you an example. The last time I was travelling to Melbourne, which was pre-COVID, back in the days of free travel, I was on a flight and there was a flight attendant that came along and asked us what we would like to drink. I asked for a cup of tea and the two people next to me asked for orange juice. When she started pulling stuff out of the drinks cart, she handed the two passengers next to me their juice and I was waiting for my tea. Now, that wasn't so problematic. I thought, okay, that's fine. The hot drinks are coming last. Then the cart moved back to the aisle behind me and still didn't have my cup of tea. I thought, oh, that's okay. Just waiting, just waiting. And then the cart moved further along. I thought, oh, I wonder if they're waiting for hot water. Maybe they're out of boiling water and it's just taking a little while. And my tea didn't come. Now, I started to get frustrated at this point. And the flight attendant who had been serving me, whose name was Pam, I started to create some thoughts about her and started to have a response in my body, which was muscular tension. My heart rate actually started to go a little bit faster because I was frustrated and I just wanted my cup of tea, damn it. So in the slide that's coming up now, you can see that the stimulus thought response model is also paired with this kind of thinking that if this happens, then I think this. So for instance, in this situation with Pam, the flight attendant, if Pam doesn't bring me my tea, then I start to think Pam is forgetful, Pam is useless, Pam's a cow, Pam should have brought me my tea, right? So a lot of the time when there's frustration involved, we often have an idea of what should have happened rather than what is happening right there. And so once I've had those thoughts, then it leads to this response around I'm angry and I'm frustrated. Now, in this moment, I had to reflect that ironically, I was flying to Melbourne to teach this kind of content around managing our thoughts, managing our stress, and calming ourselves down in frustrating situations. So I was actually able to ask myself, what would I tell somebody else in this situation? And I started to change the thought patterns that I had. And this is when we start to become more practiced at using the STR model, it becomes more automated for us. It's a really great way of starting to channel our thoughts toward things that are more productive for us rather than unproductive for us. So in this instance, I was able to change my if-then thinking to more, well, what if thinking? Well, what if this is going on instead? Or what if that is going on instead? So when you start to open up to different possibilities, rather than just thinking about what should happen, you start to get a little bit more expansive around what might be happening or what could be happening. Then you start to feel different. So in this instance, I started to ask myself, okay, what if I change my thoughts and ask some questions? What if Pam is sick? What if she's forgotten me today because she's really stressed? What could possibly be going on for her? And then the feeling is not so much anger and frustration anymore. My response becomes I'm less stressed and I actually feel more compassionate and I actually feel a bit more caring toward this woman who's forgotten my tea. So it's just a small example, but think about how many times in your day you might have these little stress triggers and how much that can accumulate over the course of the day. First thing in the morning, you know, you kind of something might go wrong at home. You know, the cat's bowl gets knocked over and water goes everywhere. Oh, that's just a little stress. And then you leave the house and then you get in the car and realise you've forgotten your lunch. And then somebody makes a comment in the office that just rubs you up the wrong way. And these little things can accumulate during the day so that by the end of the day, you're going, oh, this was terrible. The whole day was just awful. But if we could actually start to stop in the moment that we're starting to have these thoughts and go, all right, is the thought or the belief that I've got about this situation accurate? Is the thought or belief that I'm having right now productive for me? And can I change my thinking Instead of going, if this happens, then I feel this. What if? How could we open ourselves up to different possibilities? So how many examples can you think of where you could possibly transform a should into a could? So on that day, Pam maybe should have got me my tea, but she didn't. So just in thinking, well, Pam could have got me my tea, but it didn't happen. Then I started to open myself up to possibilities. So as you can see in the image on your screen, instead of being lost in the maze of my thinking, I was actually able to elevate myself to a perspective where I could see the thoughts that I was having from a different lens, from a different viewpoint. And from that viewpoint, I could go, this is a much better pathway for me to take. So I didn't get my tea. What else could I do about that? So the next flight attendant that came along, I flagged her down and I said, could I possibly get a cup of tea? And she went, no problems. Let me go get that for you. And she did. So I think the old version of me could have sat there, not asked for what I needed, stewed on it, actually stayed with that little bit of resentment and frustration. So how many times in a day do we do that? And the next time you have one of those instances in your day where you're getting frustrated, where you're getting lost in the shoulds, how can you open yourself up to what if thinking? How can you start to see in your mind's eye that model of STR and come back to that thought space and steer your thinking towards something that's more productive for you? So that's the brain hack that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that those visuals and some of that perspective is really, really useful for helping to shape some of the small stresses that happen day to day. Now, a common question that I get asked at this point is, but what if I can't change my thinking about something? What if I know that my thoughts are accurate and I know that I'm right and I'm still feeling frustrated? Well, then you might need to use a different strategy. So the tools that I teach in mental fitness, the exercises that I give for people to improve their strength and their flexibility and their endurance, it's a little bit like a repertoire of different exercises that you use at different times when you need to. You wouldn't use a flexibility exercise if you were trying to improve your strength and vice versa. It's like a toolkit. You're not going to be using a hammer when actually you need a screwdriver. So STR is one of those exercises or one of those tools in your toolkit that you can use when maybe that little shift in thinking can be useful to give you a more productive response. However, it's not necessarily always going to be the most useful strategy. So this is where I'm going to now change and start talking about a body hack that we can start to use and give you some context around how our brain connects into our bodies. So what you're seeing on your screen at the moment is a model called the Triune Brain. And this is based on evolutionary biology. So the theory goes that as we evolved a long time, that we first started with this very primal brain, what you'll see on your screen as red at the moment. So some people refer to this as the reptile brain or the lizard brain. It's very much concerned with our safety and our survival. It regulates all of our physical body processes, like it helps us to regulate our body heat. It will send signals to us to let us know if we're thirsty and need water, if we're hungry and we need food, if we are feeling too cold or hot, need shelter, etc. Now, it's also responsible for telling us if there's a threat in our environment that might be a predator of some sort. So this red part of the brain is all about giving you danger signals so that you can stay safe and do what you need to do to protect yourself. The blue part of the brain is sometimes called the mammal brain. Sometimes we refer to this as the emotional or the limbic system. You might have heard about the limbic system being referred to in the brain. As mammals evolved on from reptiles, they started to become more social creatures, and we're one of those mammals. We are connected to other human beings, and feeling a sense of belonging, feeling that other people care about us, feeling that we are connected, that we're loved, is the most important thing to this blue part of the brain. So if we are connected to our tribe, it meant that we were, in kind of caveman and cavewoman days, much more likely to survive. And so the blue and the red part of our brain communicate in order to protect us. And this blue part is more about social protection and how well am I connected. The green part of the brain is what you're going to be using when you are making decisions, problem solving, and it's referred to as the executive part of the brain. You may have heard it being spoken about before as the prefrontal cortex, and this is where all of the logical stuff happens. Now, the thing about these three developmental areas is that the brain and the body will put priority on survival before it puts priority on logic and other decision making. So what happens if we're in a stressed state is that the green part of our brain kind of goes offline and doesn't want to work for us anymore. So if we're having an emotional response to something that starts to hijack our thinking, even if we want to calm ourselves down, even if we want to be able to concentrate, even if we want to be able to do our best work, we can't, because the blue and the red part of our brain have hijacked us. Now, if you're in a constant state of stress, it means that you're not going to be able to think clearly through anything that you need to do. So actually managing our stress is a really important thing, not just from the perspective of staying healthy and happy and calm, but actually just getting stuff done, being the most productive version of ourselves that we can. So with these three centers in mind, I'm going to introduce you to this concept called the negativity bias. Now, this is another evolutionary biology idea. The negativity bias is the tendency of the brain to only look at the bad things, as you can see on the cartoon on your screen. So the rest of you might be going, oh, look at this beautiful, amazing experience. Look at, oh, these beautiful people in my life. But your brain will just want to steer back to, no, this is problematic. The reason that it happens is, again, because it kept us safe to focus on problems. So if you imagine as a caveman or a cavewoman that you're walking along and you hear a rustle in the grass, it really does serve your survival needs if you pay attention to that, right? And think, oh my gosh, it could be a predator. I need to act and get away from here now. Whereas if you didn't have a negativity bias and if you were just kind of like, oh, I wonder what that is, let's be curious and let's go and explore it, then you might get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So the negativity bias evolved. Well, natural selection really kind of kept selecting people who had more anxious brains because they were the ones who were on more of a lookout for danger. So what it means is that we have this kind of evolutionary hangover where even if great stuff is happening for us, even if we have everything that we need, even if we are surrounded by people that we love, even if we're having a myriad of positive experiences and great interactions, your brain will still want to look at the problems and go, oh, yeah, but I still don't have the car that I want, or I still haven't hit my goal, or I still don't have enough of this. And so a lot of us can slip into negative patterns of thinking and think that then there's something wrong with us. A lot of people find that it's actually hard to practice gratitude because of this negativity bias. But when I first found out that we have a natural negativity bias in our brain, I was so relieved. I thought for the first time, oh my gosh, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. This is great, because your brain will actually put about 5 to 6 times more emphasis on negative information than it does on positive information. And that's just a natural human condition. But the body hack that I'm going to teach you today is about how can we rewire that so that we can appreciate the good things in our life and leverage from the positive emotion that it brings. What I'm introducing on the screen now are these 2 different pathways in our nervous system. So in the middle, you can see the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and spine. Coming off of that, you have the autonomic nervous system, which has these 2 different branches. So roughly we can split the autonomic nervous system into the parasympathetic, which you can see in purple, and the sympathetic nervous system in green. The parasympathetic being about rest and restoration and healing your system. This will kick in when you're in a positive frame of mind, and it will kick in when you're in a calm state. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, is all about, I need to mobilize. I either need to get away from danger or I need to fight danger off. So this is what is going to kick in when you are stressed. So what happens with these different regions of the brain is if the red or the blue part of your brain is detecting some kind of physical or social threat, it will then send signals into the fight and flight system to activate stuff in your body. increasing your heart rate, making you breathe faster so you can get oxygen in to run or fight. It starts to have an impact on your pupils, dilating your pupils so that you can see better. And it also starts to bring blood flow toward your muscles in your arms and legs so that you can activate your body. And it takes blood flow away from your organ systems. Now, this has a negative impact on our health over time, which is why stress actually has an important role in the development of diabetes and cardiovascular disease and other disease processes. So it's really important to start to regulate and learn how to regulate our nervous system so that we can actually get that healing and blood flow that we need into our organ systems to keep us physiologically as well as mentally healthy. I sometimes describe the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in terms of a brake and an accelerator in your body. So the parasympathetic being that brake that slows everything down and allows the rest and the restoration to occur, and the sympathetic nervous system, that fight and flight accelerator being, all right, everything's switch on. The relevance of this is that over the last few years, there's been more and more research in the topic of heart rate variability. When we look at the heart rate, it gives us an indication as to whether the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is more dominant at any one time. In other words, are you using your accelerator more or using your brake more? Because ultimately, just like a car, the vehicle of your body will not function well if you're trying to use one or the other. It actually needs both. So we need to have a balance between that brake and accelerator. I'm going to bring up a diagram now that shows some heart rhythm patterns. On the screen, what you're seeing is not just an indication of heart rate, which is how fast your heart is going, but it's an indication of whether it's going faster or slower. So when the line is going up, that's when your heart rate is accelerating. The sympathetic nervous system is kicking in. And when the line is going down, that's when you are starting to slow down. That's the parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. So the brake and the accelerator on the top part of the diagram here in red is fluctuating in a bit more of a haphazard way. It's kind of like, oh, I'm slowing down, no, I'm speeding up, I'm slowing down, no, and it's a bit all over the place. This is what happens when we are in a frustrated or anxious or worried kind of emotional state. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in, that red part of the brain starts to send signals into your autonomic nervous system, and this is what happens with our heart rate variability. However, in the bottom part of the diagram, you'll see what we call nervous system coherence, which is where the brake and the accelerator are fluctuating nice and smoothly. If you think about driving your car, it's not a great idea to be stomping on both pedals at the same time or haphazardly going on and off of them. It's going to wear out your vehicle and lead to a very bumpy and unsafe ride. And it's the same with our body. So if we can just smoothly come off of the brake to then activate the accelerator and then slowly come off the accelerator to put the brake on, that is a much smoother trip and it's much safer for us, which is what we want to see in our nervous system patterns as well. And this is what is elicited in your body when you start to have more experiences of positive emotion. Now, this is something that you can start to instigate and you can choose for yourself by practicing positive emotion, a little bit like you're rewiring that negativity bias. So in that little section down the bottom of the screen at the moment, you'll see that this is what we often see when people are experiencing appreciation, care, love, gratitude. So a little body hack that you can use to shift your heart rhythm patterns from what looks very stressful to that more coherent pattern is a 3-part system that the Heart Math Institute has researched, which is called heart-based appreciation. So the body hack that I want to share with you today, these 3 steps are, first of all, and you can do it with me right now, slow down your breathing as the first of 3 steps. So take a deeper breath than you normally would and breathe out slowly, maybe even longer than your inhalation. Now, I know that deep breathing gets talked about a lot, and it probably, people will talk about, oh, just take a breath, which can kind of sound very dismissive, but actually what you're doing when you slow down your breathing is really important. What's happening is you are activating the parasympathetic nervous system and actually hacking your brain and sending signals into that red part of your brain that everything is okay. If you're running away from a predator, There's no way you're going to be breathing this slowly. So this is sending a subconscious signal into those parts of the brain to say it's okay. We don't have to go into survival mode. We can actually transcend survival mode and go into logical thinking mode. Now, the second step around this, once you've slowed down your breathing, is to think about your rib cage or your lungs or your heart and visualize where that breathing is coming from. So bring focus into your body's sensations. Just take a few seconds now, maybe close your eyes if you want to, and focus in on your heart. Maybe even visualize it's beating. Can you feel it speeding up? Could you feel it slowing down? Now, what you're doing with that second step, visualizing your is you're using the part of your brain. It's very close to the part of your brain to calm down the limbic system, to calm down your emotions. The insula is responsible for something called interoception, which is our internal body's systems starting to get an internal sensation of our body. So not just the sensations of the nerves of, our arms and our legs, but the nerves that are telling us what's going on within our internal body. That then is starting to itself have these connections into that mammal brain to say, hey, you can calm down as well. The third part is around bringing in the green part of your brain and actually starting to think more about what can you see right now that is good in your world. So starting to think now as the third step, what is something that you appreciate in your life? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a pet, maybe it's a happy memory, and call that to mind. Bring in that green part of your brain, the logical executive part, in a positive way. And as you're breathing, imagine that you are now bringing gratitude in as you breathe in. Heart rate might be speeding up a little. And then breathe out and send that appreciation outwards. So training your brain to look for the positives and to start to practice feeling appreciation is that important third step. We also know, as a quick little tip here from neuroscience, that it takes about 17 seconds for these patterns to shift and for different neurochemicals to start flooding your system when you shift into a positive state. So if you think a happy thought, if you think about something you're grateful for, don't just hang on to it for 3 seconds and then move on to the next stressful thought. See if you can savor that moment for 17 seconds or more. So if you can sit in a feeling of gratitude for about 20 seconds, then you really start to see some physiological as well as psychological shifts. It starts to change the way that your dopamine and your serotonin is acting in your brain and starts to shift your cardiovascular and other rhythms and nervous system activation through your body as well. So those 3 steps in summary again: slow down your breathing, start to think about your internal body and feel that, and then start to shift your thinking into something of appreciation and gratitude. So that little body hack there is going to have a significant impact on managing your stress. And it might be something that you just do in one breath. It might be something you do in between client meetings. It might be something that you do in the car, on the train, on the way home. It might just be something you do in the shower. So see if you can integrate it, whether it's for 1 breath or 50, sometime during your day. The more frequently you do it, then the more likely you are to be able to rewire that negativity bias in your brain to be able to appreciate what's good in your world and reduce that stress response, both for the benefit of your body and your mind. Here are some other little hacks that I want to share with you, some positivity tips. So one thing that I teach, and I'm talking to a group soon about this, is around keeping a done list. So instead of just having a to-do list of, oh, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, keep a done list. So keep that list of going, this is what I've accomplished. Because when you feel a sense of achievement in your day, it increases the amount of dopamine in your brain and actually makes you more motivated to want to do more. Another positivity tip is to celebrate strengths. So when you're looking at somebody, and even if there's somebody who's frustrating you, think about what strengths they're showing. I know I've got somebody in my life who sometimes really frustrates me because she is so blunt to the point where sometimes I think, oh my God, you're so rude. But when I think about her in terms of, do you know what? She has a real strength in honesty. I can start to see that through a different lens, and I start to see that not as problematic, but I see it as a strength instead of a weakness. And it doesn't just help my relationship with her, it may not even make any impact on her, but it changes the way that I feel about that interaction. And then the third tip is expressing appreciation. So once you have felt something that you appreciate, share it with somebody, especially directly with the person. If you are feeling appreciation for them, tell them how grateful you are for them. Say thank you. Tell them that you've noticed something that they've done. And in that sharing, there's a huge influx of positive emotions, positive neurochemicals, positive hormones that come into your body, as well as for that other person. So give it a go. Express appreciation to somebody today. So a question that I would like to leave you with as we wrap up this presentation today is, what could change in your work life or even in your personal life if you were to improve one aspect of your mental fitness? So what would happen if you started to become practiced at that STR model and starting to shift your unproductive thoughts to productive thoughts? What could shift if you started to use that body hack of that heart-based appreciation breathing? Or indeed, coming up on your screen right now, there's a slide which shows a range of different mental fitness exercises that you can take. So in terms of building our mental strength, starting to focus on character strengths, like I talked about, instead of just thinking, oh, somebody's really blunt and rude, start to think about it in terms of their strength of honesty. And start to think about, what are your strengths that you bring out in your behaviour every day? Awareness. So STR is really one of those skills that helps us to become more aware of what's going on in our internal processing and communicate that better. Authenticity, which is about being less fake and keeping things a bit more real and expressing a true side of yourself. Mental flexibility, which is about practicing creative thinking, innovation and problem solving. Letting go of perfectionism and starting to practice self-compassion as well as compassion toward others. And another flexibility exercise, which is letting go of doubt and starting to trust more. Or what might change in your life if you started to let go of being mentally lethargic and started to build your mental energy and endurance by living into your values and what's really important to you? Letting go of being exhausted and busy all the time and actually practicing some stillness, even if it's just in little micro doses. Or what would shift if you started to get control of your fear and started to practice more emotional mastery and started to use the power of your emotions instead of trying to repress them? So these are the 9 topic areas in our mental fitness that I teach. Different exercises for each of those topics as well. And if you'd like to find out more about them, you can go to this website, which is up on your screen at the moment, which is smithandwellness.com/resources. There is a TEDx talk there that I've done on mental fitness. There's some YouTube vlogs on there that you can check out. And also there's an online course which takes you through those 9 different topic areas one by one that you can explore in your own time. Now, a couple of questions that often come up at this stage. A lot of people ask me around mindfulness and meditation. So one thing that I want to suggest is that actually in that whole arena around stillness, meditation and mindfulness are some of the things that I teach. And there is a lot of research to support that when you start to practice mindfulness, even if it's broken down into very small segments during your day, you don't have to sit for 30 minutes or an hour for mindfulness or meditation to make an impact. You can break it into smaller components, and it actually makes a huge difference, not only to your experience, but it's been shown through MRI studies that it increases the grey matter and the white matter in your brain. It actually helps your processing. So there's a really great app that I use called Insight Timer. A lot of people go, oh, are there apps that I should use? Is there a YouTube video that I should go to? I love Insight Timer. So for those people who are wondering what a good meditation and mindfulness resource is, go and check that out. It's downloadable on your phone, and you can actually put in a time to say, look, I've only got 5 minutes, or I've only got 3 minutes. Give me a meditation that I can do in a short amount of time, or it has longer meditations that it can take you through as well. So for those people who are wondering, yes, mindfulness is a very useful strategy for building your mental fitness, and Insight Timer is a great resource that you can use. And that other question, which I touched on before around, well, what if this isn't going to be useful for me in a particular situation? use this mental fitness model like a little bit of a toolkit. So you can select one part that might be useful today, you can select 3 parts, and tomorrow you might find that you need something else. So you can also use it as a bit of a self-assessment to go, what do I need right now? So I hope that this session has been useful for you today, as giving you some concrete and practical strategies for managing your stress. As I said earlier in the session, please feel free to share it with other people as well. Talk about these strategies in your family, share it with your friends, because the more people who understand some of these little mental fitness hacks, then the healthier we are all going to be together. So enjoy the rest of your eSummit. Good luck, go well, take care, and stay in touch with me online. If you have any questions following the session that come up for you, please feel free to get in touch with the FBAA and they can pass that on to me, or you can also get in touch with me on the website via your screen. So thank you again, go well, take care, bye for now.
Thanks, Beck, and I suppose some very good tips in there in terms of maybe what you can practice while you're sitting on hold with some lenders. So without further ado, though, we'll press on because I know we are running a little bit behind. So I'd like to welcome Lee Hutchings, who has been presenting on, who will be presenting on how major life events influence the purchase of personal insurance with ALI Group. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you, Trent. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today. And I'm just going to share my screen so that I can get my PowerPoint here. So you'll have to forgive me. Those that know me know that technology is not my greatest feature. So bear with me. What I wanted to go through today, and help me out here, Trent, can you see my screen? Beautiful. Is just talk about some of those life events that actually impact your client's choice to purchase personal insurance. We've had a really busy first half of the year here at ALI. We recently changed insurers, so we're now partnering with Zurich Australia, and they've been absolutely fantastic since coming on board. And it's really invigorated us, I think, here at ALI around wanting to get back in front of more brokers and really talk to you about why is this an important discussion that you should be having, and how do you have that discussion? You know, how do you bring it in? Where do you bring it in with your customers? So we've done a few things in the last few months, a little bit of a survey to find out where this fits, and sort of gone out on the hunt a little bit to find out, you know, how we can help our brokers with this. So as you know, at ALI, our mission is to protect Australian home and property buyers. It's behind everything that we do, from how we recruit our staff to how we develop our new product and brochures, etc. But the most important thing is that this is just not possible without our valued broker partners. So for any of you that are on the webinar today, and I know I've seen a few of the names pop up that are offering ALI, thank you very much. And I'm sure, and I know that a few of you have had claims with us, with your clients. So it's an amazing thing that you've actually done for them by protecting them. Some of the life stages, and there's some research that's been done into this over the years, those last stages that might trigger your client looking for personal insurance. I don't think the first one there's a surprise to anyone. You know, we can all go along on this merry old world thinking it's just about us, and then our life changes, we get a partner, and then kids come into the mix, and we really do start to think about, you know, maybe it's not just about me, but what would my family do if something was to happen? And the second and third trigger there, buying a home and financial change. This is where, as brokers, you really sit in the box seat in terms of being able to respond and bring this to the fore with your customers. If they're buying a home, for most people, you know, unless they go on to own a business or something, it is the biggest financial decision they will ever make. So it really does trigger those thoughts, and it's a real buying point for clients in terms of personal insurance. Through that process that you go through with your clients, you build a really, really strong relationship with them. We all know about the questions you need to ask them. Some are very, very personal, can also get very, very intimate, but you get to know them really, really well. And through that, you're building trust. And through the process, you're also educating your customers about what it is that they need to do to get themselves in a position to borrow, and the difference between the different lenders out there and why you need to do things that you need to do for them. So that trust and education, you know, don't underestimate the importance of that in terms of also bringing up the topic of protecting themselves, because we know from research that people don't think about it. So you've got to bring it up to them. You've really got to talk to them about what their plan B might be. And it's something that's just so vital in terms of that discussion. So if people are looking at getting personal insurance, you know, where is it that they can actually find this type of insurance? And I just wanted to point out here, I'm not talking about those people that are prepared to go and look at that full financial planning advice. We're talking about the space that we sit in. People that look at it and go, you know what, I just want some cover for this. I just want to protect myself from now. And hopefully in the future, they then go and take that full financial advice. But we're just talking about the here and now. They want to protect themselves, protect their debt, protect their family. So there's a few different options for them. Inbound phone calls, so they can do a bit of research. They can get a list of phone numbers and start phone call. Calling around all the different insurance, finding out what the options are. They can generally ask questions. Most of the time a script will be followed. So, you know, they're not going to be getting any type of advice backwards. It's just they are following a script. They have to when they do these phone calls. Quite often incentives are used to get clients to actually sign up on the spot. That operator on the end of the line knows that he's speaking to Bill Brown. Bill's about to call another 2 or 3 insurers. He's possibly already called 1 or 2. So they do sometimes have these incentives up their sleeve to put a little bit of pressure on clients to sign up on the spot. Clients can also go online 24/7. If you're a night owl and you're up at 1 o'clock in the morning when the Tour de France is finished and you want to do a little bit of homework on your insurance needs, you can jump online. It is convenient for clients. It's absolutely one of the main reasons people would jump online. But it can also be very overwhelming because there are so many different providers out there. And unless they've got a basic idea or knowledge of what they're looking for and what it is that they should have, they're really going to get quite overwhelmed by that whole process. And then the third channel is yourselves, mortgage brokers. And we know that, you know, with 60+% of clients looking to use and establish a relationship with a mortgage broker to do their purchase, their construction, whatever it might be, it's becoming a much more important channel. Chances are, if you're not speaking to your customer about the need for risk protection, no one is. And I'll show you a slide in a moment. They're not going online. They're not making those phone calls. So you guys become very, very important in this process. And again, back to those relationships that you've built with your customer, they are more likely to give you 5 minutes of their time to talk about this than they are some random person that they don't know on the end of the phone. So there's a few different options for them. We did some research recently amongst our policyholders that we'd taken on board in the last 6 months. What was interesting is that less than a quarter of them had actually searched online for insurance before. So they're not going online to find it, most of them. 1 in 3 strongly agreed with the statement that said they had not considered any form of risk protection or insurance until their broker mentioned it. So they're not thinking about it, particularly if you think about where a lot of our WA market's been in the last 12 to 18 months and those first home buyers. That age group is not jumping online. They're not seeking insurance. So they really do need you to be bringing it up. And importantly, 7 out of 10 policyholders said as soon as their broker mentioned this, they were really keen to hear more. They wanted to know more about it. So I think that's really, really important. And obviously these are all policyholders that we've spoken to. So that 7 out of 10 went to 10 out of 10 once their broker went through it, because all of these people actually took the policy out. A key thing that we found as well when we really, we asked a few questions to find out what their experience was like with their broker, what the experience with ALI was like. And what was really pleasing to find is that 90% of these policyholders felt that through that discussion, that 5-minute discussion with their broker, they really understood the policy that they'd purchased. They really understood the need, why they'd taken it on board, and it really highlighted that trust that they have with their mortgage broker. It was something that they brought up, and as soon as it was brought up, no matter, you know, whether it was someone that had never thought about insurance before, they listened and they paid attention and they at least gave it due consideration. Now, we know that people, not everyone will take this. A lot of us still like to bury our heads in the sand. It's never going to happen to me. I'm young, fit and healthy. Clearly, I'm not talking about myself. But, you know, all these different reasons and excuses that they will use. But if you just have that conversation, because it's not something that typically as Aussies we go out looking for. So ALI's been around 18 years. We've been working with mortgage brokers all that time. We only deal with mortgage brokers. We've tried a few different alternatives many years back. It doesn't work, surprise, surprise. We really rely on that trust that you've built up with your client as an introduction to ALI and an introduction to loan protection. You know, over this time, we've improved every time we do a product upgrade, it is to legitimately enhance the product. So we're always trying to find ways to offer more value to your clients, but also more tools for you, help you in your discussions and make the whole process simpler for you. Last year alone, we paid over $14 million in claims to Aussie home and property buyers. A lot of them here in WA last year. There were quite a few. 73% of our trauma benefit claims last year were for some form of cancer. And the reason we sort of highlight that is that the trauma cover really is the hero of our product. Survivability rates these days, you know, particularly in things like cancer with medical enhancements, people are surviving things a lot longer, but it always comes at a cost. And a lot of the time it's a physical cost, but more importantly, it's also a financial cost. If people need to be finding money to cover mortgages, pay medical bills, all those sorts of things, traumas are the one that traditionally people don't have in some form, whether it's, you know, they've got something inside their super, or they've gone and got something else, or picked up a real insurance because they saw it on TV at 10 o'clock at night or something. Trauma's the one a lot of people don't have. And particularly when you're talking about those young first home buyers and builders, they don't think it's going to happen to them. You know, they're 23 years of age and they are bulletproof. But I can tell you at ALI that every year our claims would absolutely say otherwise. And if you are a current authorised rep, you'll see in our current brochure we share a few recent claims, and there's a disturbing amount of very young people suffering cancer in particular. So not always a nice conversation to have, and I apologise if I've brought the mood down a little bit, but it really is a discussion that you need to have with your clients. And you know, we listened to the last speaker talking about reducing stress. Well, that's what we're here for. We really want to reduce that financial stress for you and your clients, for you because we want you to sleep at night knowing that you've at least had that discussion, even if your client said no. And for your clients, obviously, when things do go wrong, we really want to make sure that we're there for them. If anyone's interested, if you're not on board and you want to know a little bit more about what's involved with the ALI, my number's on screen, and I know that Mariah and the FBAA team will get that out to you after today's event. But thank you very much, and stay safe, everyone. Look after yourselves.
Thanks, Leah. Always great supporters with the FBAA, and as I say, the contact details will be sent out post the session, or you'll be able to find them through FBAA contacts as well. Next, we're going to hear from FBAA Managing Director Peter White AM and Nigel Rausch, the CEO of Two Red Kites. Unfortunately, given the state of world that we're in and things being shut down and then opened up again in various parts of the place, Peter couldn't be here live to present, so he's got some important matters to attend to, and scheduling other meetings that's important for advocacy is for our industry as well. So we've got an education session that was from our first Victoria TAS eSummit in this round, and they're going to provide you information around the tech space and where it's likely to go in the future as a Q&A session. If you've got questions for them, please put them in the chat box, and the guys will follow up with Peter and Nigel directly, and we'll get those answers back to you. So over to Peter and Nigel.
And welcome everyone again to today. Also, I do want to say thank you to Senator the Honourable Jane Hume for the opening address that she's giving, and we look forward to hearing from her not only through these sessions but also in the future as well. I'd also like to thank Nigel, who's joining us this morning. You there, Nigel?
Hey.
There you go. G'day, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for joining us. Today we're looking at, I guess, the future of, or where the future is going with technology in the financial services sector and within broking businesses, and just in general where that market is treading. And I think it's very timely after coming out of the back of COVID, where we did everything digitally. It worked for some, not for everyone. And so we have a mixture of face-to-face and digital these days. But I think it'd be great to get an understanding of a few of the things that are happening now, as well as your view on where you think the future's going in regards to within technologies within businesses, and hopefully give some people some understanding directions of maybe what they should be doing in their business. So Nigel, I might just sort of start with a bit of an opening thought, just a general thought from yourself as to where is tech at the moment? I mean, there's so much talk about blockchains and AI and all this sort of stuff. Where really is the tech space at the moment, and where do you see it going in the next, say, 5 years, just in a broad general sense?
Absolutely. Okay, so the tech industry is actually going crazy at the moment, as you can imagine. As you know, a year ago, you couldn't buy a webcam. That's a great example of how everything changed. People needed webcams to do Zoom calls. The same's happening with people realizing that they need to put their tech in a place that everyone can access all the time, securely, of course, instead of the old way of you need to be in the office, access this document, work on it, and then finish working on it. That was let's say the old way. Now, so tech is going that way forward, as well as we're getting a lot more of the interesting security things, like it's now actually at the point that if you're talking about blockchain, all we think about blockchain normally is dollars and cents, okay, or Bitcoin and things like that. But they're using that same type of technology for now property transfers and things like that to track a property transfer, and you've got now a unique identifier saying this was that particular property transfer, and you can keep the chain of events of that. So there's some really interesting, and other people are using it for contract management, so that each change of a contract is recorded into the blockchain as a key, and you now know that that contract was that particular format at that moment in time, so that if someone did make a change to it in some way later, you can verify it against a blockchain, which is something that can't be changed. So,
and that's really interesting because, and look, sorry, I probably should have let everybody know. Nigel is our tech expert at the FBAA, and he's doing a whole lot of software development for us on our CRM and so on. And Nigel runs a business called Two Red Kites. Now, Nigel, I got to ask this because it's been burning me forever. Where did you get the name Two Red Kites? Tell me that. How does that interrelate with technology?
Okay, so our main language that so my previous partner and we actually put a whole day aside. I don't know if anyone's started up. I've started up multiple businesses and sold them off and done all those type of things. And my business partner and I put a day aside to actually go try to pick a name. And we had our pre-sequel ideas of cloud because, we do a lot of stuff in the cloud. Our main language that we write in is called Ruby, which is red. And there was two of us, and we came up with two red for Ruby and kites because they're in the clouds. And we didn't want to have that, tech stuff or tech this or tech that type company. We wanted to have something that was a little bit different. We now abbreviate. This is my new show that I've only just got. I'm trying to go over the top, but we now call ourselves 2RK just to make it a little bit simpler for people as well. But that's where that came from. And it's a little bit unique, and hopefully people remember it. So as I say, funny name, but serious business.
Very good, and I certainly remember it. It's thank you for sharing that. I know it's a little impromptu, but it's always interesting how names get developed and what's sitting behind. Well, I find it fascinating anyhow. Thank you, sir. Coming back to what you're saying, I was just, as you were talking before about the connecting chains of events through blockchain as such, and what that looks like as to how you get a UIP, a unique identifier, and so on with it. It's for someone like me who's been in the industry for a long time. I remember back to a thing where the land title of a property was called a chain of title. And when you transferred a property between owners, you get in settlements a stack of paper like this, just monumental stack of paper. And you had to go through line by line by line of the chain of title to validate its authenticity and legal ownership of the property and transfer the property. And it's almost like it's taken that old process that then became a Torrens title, and it all changed from there, into a digitized form of that style of thought process to validate the entire chain of history of events, that it's all good and all legal. Is that fair assumption? Yeah,
and look, we build, so probably the background here is, and I think where Peter was going before is that there's going to be some really exciting new things everyone's going to see shortly from the FBAA back-end system, which is going to be really exciting for you, which we're working on at the moment. But Two Red Kites actually do lots of building from consignment systems through to a bereavement support system, through to babysitting systems. So we've worked in so many different domains, and it's a lot of fun because of that. But one of the things that we get really worried is when someone comes to us with a, hey, here's something totally new, we want to do this. And there is no previous process. They don't even have a paper-based process for it. And we're going, okay, you need to at least do it in paper first, prove the concept, because paper can get changed really quickly. Okay, once you write some code and you're stuck with that, it costs money to change. So I'm a firm believer that it's really important to work out those paper-based processes first. Remember that those paper-based processes won't flow straight into web-based processes, because in a paper-based one, you might have a compulsory field like last name, but you'll still hand that form off to the next person without that last name in there. A online form is going to say, nope, you can't submit that until you put that last name in. Okay, so you have to remember those type of things, but you're now getting a lot more control over that environment. So that's, I believe, you have to watch how those things work, and then it's just a standard growth pattern for them.
Sure. And is that sort of like the first base if you're going to customize your own software? So yeah, we look at that customization process. I remember going back 10, 20 years, maybe longer, back in the very early days, if you went to a developer to customize software for you, you sort of double the time frame and double the cost, and you might be getting near the mark of where it's going to land. Very different world these days, but I mean, principally, is that what you do? You take your paper process, map it out, and then build a customized software underneath that so it suits your particular business rather than a box off a shelf?
Exactly. So funny enough, like even yesterday, a client that I had that was, oops, got something popping up. Okay. A client that I had yesterday that was actually, and their company is actually called Poles and Holes. Okay, so they actually do electrical poles at construction sites, and I guess you can guess what the holes is all about. And they basically, I gave them a proposal for a custom solution because they had rewritten their original application in Access Database, and they had the ability for multiple people to use it. So, and they actually got, they went, okay, I'm going to use an off-the-shelf product to do this. It can do everything we can do, and it's only going to cost me $200 a month compared to, say, $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 to develop it. And they actually called me yesterday and went, okay, we realized it created so much extra work for us having to try to follow somebody else's process, not our process. And I always say it's the cart pushing the horse. It's an old saying, but you know, it's a very valid thing where the cart is actually pushing the horse around instead of the horse pulling the cart. Okay, and you're being controlled by their processes, not like, let's use Salesforce as a great example there. You're controlled by their process, and if you have some specific process or workflows, you can't easily set them up yourself. And that's the big thing.
That's very much the case with the FBAA. We are with Salesforce, although we're transitioning onto your new system. And I got to admit, it's been a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you, and extraordinarily expensive. And every time you sneeze, something breaks, and there's more costs, and just. But can
we just confirm this? You're talking about Salesforce here. It sounds like you're talking about my system.
No. Your system. Well, we're not on your system yet. We're waiting to get on it. I can't wait to finish it off. So we're close to that.
It is. Salesforce is now the new SAP, and if everyone knows about SAP, if you've ever had to get an SAP, so it's the big accounting system. It's like the top end, accounting system, and you're talking. You pay $1 million for the software, and then it will be another 2 or 3 million to configure it the way that you want to use it. SAP is what was used in Queensland Health and didn't pay all the nurses and all those type of things. So that's the scenario that is now happening with Salesforce, and a lot of people are getting stuck in that situation. It's a great product, but use it for what it is, not for trying to make it into something else. So,
well, thank God we haven't spent millions, but even in my head, we've probably spent way too much on Salesforce over all these years. So I'll be happy to get out of it, let me assure you. So tell me more, let's talk about the cloud. Tell me a little bit around what online solutions and online tools, how they benefit a business and how they can be used a bit within a person's business.
Okay, well, the obvious one is Zoom. Like, don't you wish you had bought shares in January last year of Zoom? It's now worth ridiculous amounts of money. But
Afterpay was the other one I should have bought shares in.
Exactly. Yeah. Tools like Zoom. Now, being a development company, we actually can work totally remote, and I can use a totally remote team if I wanted to. I could use a team that is overseas. I choose not to because I like to be part of the community and have a local development team, but it would be 5 times cheaper to use Ukraine resources or stuff like that. And one of the things that I did find is using Zoom. I think Zoom is one of those great products that everyone's jumped onto. Excuse me, I have to stop for a sec because I'm going to have to cough. So, Pete,
you do that? Well, Nigel's coughing. One of the things that we did in the FBAA is that we transitioned from everybody working in the office to, well, obviously in COVID, everybody had to work from home, but then we came back into a split system. And I can tell you, I'm a bit old school. I was dead set against people working from home. And then as through COVID and we came out the back end of it, I said, I'm dead set not going back to the office. So anyhow, we worked the split structure when we got back. So we had staff that, we worked 1 week in the office and 1 week from home. And we did that for, a couple of months. And then the staff turned around and asked me, so look, what we would like to do is to work Monday and Friday from home and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office. And I said, well, that just sounds like a long weekend to me. So we cut a deal and said, well, look, so long as KPIs are met, so long as we continue to grow, I'm good with it. But if you don't, you lose the lot. So today, it has been extraordinarily successful. And we have, as Leah would be today, she's probably working from home by the looks of it. I am, although I've got to go get on an airplane soon. But we have this split arrangement. It works extremely well for a work-life balance. And I think that the way we've embraced technology, even though we got a bit of an overload last year, all that will rationalise out and balance out. So the ability for cloud solutions and improving systems so you can basically work from anywhere, I think is fantastic. And hopefully, Nigel, you've got control of the cough, mate. There's nothing worse, is there?
No, I knew I was gone. What I actually this was an interesting thing that actually was the downside of being totally remote was, and maybe this is my old school part of it, but you don't pick up on some of the verbal cues that you would in that if you see people face to face. And I found, so we actually worked on, we go back to the office 1 day a week, and that was, I call it more of a social day. I could actually say the productivity is lower on those days than it is when people work remote. But it's a good thing because we're human, we're social animals. So I think it's still an important part of it. So
I couldn't agree more. That getting together, and we're social animals, but that meeting, getting together in the office, I think is crucial to get the balance right. Because otherwise, and it happens in many other areas, that the pendulum swings too far the other way and you lose that balance, which to me, in my philosophy I operate in, you lose that harmonic in your life and then nothing seems to go right. So I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
So just quickly on the other side of it is IM, so like Slack or, I've got the Microsoft equivalent. I think Teams, Microsoft Teams. Okay, those type of tools for async communication are really important, so that you can send messages to a group. You might send it to a team that might be just related to one particular project. As you probably, I don't know if you know, Peter, but we're actually using Slack while we're doing this project. It's allowing your team to actually talk directly to my team, so that you don't have to call every time. They can put what we call an async message in there, which might not get replied to straight away. It might not be important, but it's better that way than using all that time trying to call people all the time. So, and then having your resources online, I think that's the other important thing. And most of us do that these days with our documents and other things. So those are probably the three key things.
So tell me, where is the future going? If we said, what does 10, 20 years from now look like? Where do you think all this goes? I mean, do we wind up getting rid of the human being out of the system, or is technology real the grunt worker as such as we go forward? What are your thoughts?
AI is amazing. Like I've got friends that write software that is used in drones that fly beside the high tension lines, and they can, the drone goes around each insulator, and it can via AI on the spot go, yep, that one needs replacing. Yep, and then it goes to the next one, and it just does things like that. So instead of you got people trying to walk on these high tension lines, which is pretty crazy stuff anyway. This is doing that automatically. So AI in data. We wouldn't have had a COVID vaccination if it hadn't been for AI, because you're talking huge amounts of data, and they push this through to basically say, here's the result we want, here's all this data, compare them, and then give us the thing. And that's what they're using AI type technologies against to do. So I actually saw one example where they're using DNA streams, and the amount of data is it's immense that we're talking about. So and a normal processing of that just doesn't work. So that's our future in that sense. The other thing I'd say is, if you've got if you want a future thing like car parks, I reckon are going to don't invest in car parks in the city. You'd be hoping one day that you'd hope in the near future you'd have the ability that your car takes you into the city, you get out, and it goes out of the city somewhere and parks in a car park outside of the city and charges itself, and then come back and gets you when you want to leave work. Okay, maybe that's a thing. I don't know, but I'm just I'm putting silly things of like the whole city complex is going to change, and what happens in cities is going to change with the amount of people and who needs to go there and how you get there and get back. So
yeah, look, I agree with you on that. I think it'll be very interesting in the coming few decades as to what capital cities really look like
exactly
compared to where they are today.
Well, look,
we're out of time. Fascinating chatting.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to go into another tangent, but we were out of time. So.
Yeah, we've got the end of our time for you, but we will continue this conversation another time because it's fascinating. So hopefully that was of interest to people watching and enjoyed understanding a little bit more of what's happening with technology and how you can consider using it otherwise. Nigel from Two Red Kites, mate, thank you so much. We'll look forward to catching up with you again soon, and appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for this opportunity, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Stay safe.
And guys, just while I've got Peter and Nigel online still, guys, if anybody does have any questions today, please feel free to pop them down into the chat box and we can read them out live to Peter and Nigel. Alternatively, you can send them through to the events team at head office on events@fbaa.com.au, and we'll be able to read them out. But for the time being, guys, it doesn't seem like there has been a great deal that has been sent through. Nigel, I've only got one question for you, though, on the security of obviously using cloud tech. Is it the most secure system out there that people can use?
Look, there's always, you have to be worried if you're on Google that maybe Google will use your data to work out other things. Now, you could imagine what I could probably say is any tech that you have, I've always said a tech person controls the business. Don't think the CEO controls the business. If you've got a tech department, they control the business, okay? They have access to every document, everything in your whole system, okay? And they could look at anything. They could look at anyone's email. They can do all those things. So if they really wanted to, they could, okay? At least with when you've got it in the cloud, does someone really want to go look at your information? Maybe there is a Google, but they have lots of safeguards to prevent that. I actually have someone that writes software that actually does, that works with Zoom that will do the meetings, and he had to actually show his security protocols to show that no one internally could access any of the transcripts from any meeting and all the other processes from that. The other side of it is Google does actually have a feature that will allow a tech person to gain access to someone's email account, but it will notify and record that that's happened. Okay, so at least you've got some auditing there, and I think that's really important. Auditing is the most important thing, and I actually try to say to people, especially when we build systems for people, don't go too heavy. Security is a double-edged sword. It's a great thing, but it's a pain in the proverbial as well, okay? Because what happens if you have to get that order out, but you need to change it by 10, but the only person allowed to change that order is out at lunch or something else, okay? They're away that day. So it's much better having the concept of anyone can change it, but everything's recorded and audited and logged, okay? So if anyone comes back later and says, who changed this? They don't have to shout out in the room saying, hey, who changed this? It can be, Peter changed it. So, it's that type of concept. So security, I believe, is there. Use two-factor authentication if you can. It's really important. And don't do the Facebook, what was your favorite pet's name and all those type of things, which are trolling ways of trying to find details about you that they can use for your passwords. And don't use unauthenticated, unsecure wireless networks as well.
I think that's some really valuable advice that you've given to our members today that are on the call. So Nigel, again, as reiterating what Peter said, thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, that brings us to a close, guys, and we hope you got a lot out of today. The information session that we've provided, and I know I did and I always do from the eSummit sessions. Just to mention that myself and Mark and the state councillors who were on the call yesterday, as well as the two who weren't on the call, are available to you at any time. Contact details are all on the FBAA website if you're not sure how to get in touch, or through head office as well. They will always put you in direct contact with us. Before we close off the session, there's a few quick notes. So firstly, to acknowledge all our national sponsors again. I can't thank them enough. Obviously, we don't get to do the things we do without them. So again, please support them as best you can, and all their contact details will be sent to you shortly. In the same email, or a separate email, you'll be receiving the code for the 1.5 CPD hours and a short survey. Please provide your feedback, good, bad, indifferent. I'm sure it's all going to be fantastic. But either way, that's the way we make sure that we're going to cover topics that you want to hear about. It's going to be relevant for you. I know we cover a broad range of topics over the year, so we want to make sure that it's always things that you want to hear about. The 15th of July, 9:30 or 11:30 Australian Eastern is our next Q&A session with Whitey, with Matt Rogers from RBG Lawyers, around critical issues with the industry and how they can help you. You can register via the FBAA website under the upcoming webinars tab. Also note that the national conference has moved dates, obviously with everything that just happened recently, from the 30th of July. Now it's going to be the 5th of November. It's still going to be the same great event, big party obviously afterwards, and we're really looking forward to hopefully seeing as many WA brokers as we can over there. We want to enjoy the conference with you as well. There's webinar recordings as well on the FBAA YouTube, so if you haven't checked that out before, it's a good way to catch up on some CPD hours if you need to. And also just to brush up on some good information. So make sure that you jump in there. That's it for today. Thank you everyone who was on the call for today and the last 2 days for that matter. The next session we'll do is obviously going to be face-to-face. So we're looking forward to seeing all your smiling faces in one room. Cheers and have a great day.